So pretty excited to talk to you guys about this movie because over the weekend I watched the Malayalam disaster thriller drama movie 2018. I was really pumped to watch this movie, and what makes me even more excited to talk to you guys about this movie is this is the first movie I have seen in cinema. The first Malayalam movie I've seen in cinema. Really, I've only seen a few Indian movies in cinema in general. So I'm pretty pumped to talk to you guys and give you guys a bit of a perspective of what it might look like for, if you watch a Malayalam movie here in Australia, here in Melbourne, Australia, if that's a thing. So stick around to the end because I'll be talking about that a little bit towards the end. But this movie, oh my God, let's just get into it. This movie, so brilliant, amazing, breathtaking. It is, wow, an emotional roller coaster, but a really powerful movie. And I was so happy to watch this movie. And I think the best way to experience this movie is, yes, in the cinema. It was just a perfect cinema movie, I think, because you're just trapped in the cinema like you are, like the people that you're seeing on screen. I will try and keep this movie a little bit spoiler free. So for the first half, I'll be talking about the movie without any spoilers. Then the second half, I might go into a bit more spoilers. I will put some disclaimers on the screen, perhaps, when I'm starting that spoiler discussion. Before I continue on, though, I would like to ask you guys in the audience to please leave a comment about if you did go through this experience and how was it in real life. I love interacting with people in the audience, so I will respond to every single comment, especially for this movie. I know at the heart of this movie, it's the emotional side of things and how great that was done, but I have to talk about this movie a little bit on its technical aspects, firstly. Amazingly well done. Like, the thing that really stood out for me in this movie, especially in the second half, was the sound design. I mean, when you're watching this movie in the cinema, all you hear is rain. The second half is you're consistently surrounded by rain. And you would think that's not that big a deal, but it's actually a pretty delicate art to have it so that, there's rain when you're inside a car. There's rain when you're outside. There's rain when you're running. You can tell everyone is sort of speaking loudly and having to raise their voices because of obviously the rain. So really well done with the sort of sound design. A lot of credit has to go to the people that were behind the scenes in this movie. The other thing I want to talk about from a production point of view is really like how well this movie looked, despite being such a dark movie. Now, I remember seeing the trailer and I was a little bit worried about seeing the trailer in a few scenes because they looked really dark. And I was a bit concerned that, whenever I see movies in the dark, I always get a bit concerned because I'm like, am I going to miss something? Is this just going to be hard to see, for instance? But this movie had none of those issues, actually. Everything looked really good. Despite being, second half especially, being all in the dark, where the first half has more daylight. Second half is all in the dark and it's like, there's not much, obviously there's no street lights. It's really just the moonlight that's there. So really, well done to make this look as good as it did. There were some underwater scenes as well, which was really, it looked amazing. Really well done once again. So yeah, production-wise, this movie was just amazing. And of course, the performances. I have to talk about the performances in this movie. Oh my God. Stacked cast. Like, led by Tovino Thomas. But honestly, the cast it's really an ensemble kind of movie. Because even Tovino Thomas doesn't have all that much screen time. He probably has the most. But just because, the amount of characters in this movie, we get a lot of time with other sort of characters, and the performances in this was so good. Aside from Tovino Thomas, who I thought was an absolute star, like he is just a superstar. It's been a while since I've seen a Tovino Thomas movie, to be honest, but he is like such a great leading man. He reminds me of a really, back in the day with Hollywood used to have a lot of traditional leading men who could just sort of, take the reins and just take over an entire movie themselves. Tovino Thomas has that because he can be funny. He can be a great love interest. He can be an action star. As he showed in this movie at times. His variety is really dynamic. So I've always been a big fan of Tovino Thomas, and it makes sense for me to see my first Malayalam movie with Tovino Thomas, as he has been integral to sort of my Malayalam journey so far. Just as a quick aside, a quick mention to the Norway Machan, one of our fans, and honestly, one of my mates at this point. Tovino Thomas apparently has had some history with sort of this kind of situation, so he's perfectly cast for this movie. Apparently, he's kind of a hero in even real life because he's been through an experience similar to this. So I'll just put up an article here, just going through basically what he's gone through and how he's helped people in the past during sort of other rain-related kind of instances in Kerala itself. But the other sort of actor that I want to give a big special mention to, I think, this time is Asif Ali. I've seen a bit more of him recently because I recently watched the movie Kuman, but he was, oh my God, he showed another side to me in this movie. Like, he was really like energetic at times. He had to battle with his family and that tension that he has with them. He did such a great role. He was really like stealing the scenes, stealing the show almost every time he was on screen because he was funny as well at times, being really sort of lighthearted in some of his earlier engagements before it gets really serious. But he was really impressive. And of course, we have other sort of almost cameos in a way, I think, with Kunchako Bourbon and Vineet Srinivasan. Really, they're the main stars, as well as Aparna Balamuri. I've not really seen her much before. And Vimala Nikhil. Of course, I'm seeing some new faces. That's probably the main actors that I saw in this movie to sort of lead the show. But everyone was fantastic. I got to say, though, the side actors were almost all the show times for me, to be honest. Some of the performances, I have to give a big mention to this guy, Lal, who plays the father of Asif Ali. His performance was spectacular. I mean, one, he has that presence, that elderly sort of statesman who sort of, man, he had such a commanding role and he was such a good leader at times in this movie. So I really just enjoyed a lot of side characters. There was a bunch of tourists as well for small parts of this movie, and like a travel agent, a driver who was there. He was also fantastic as well, played a small role, but I mean, there's a lot of small stories in this movie, but everyone sort of has a part to play. So performances, fantastic. I was so taken aback by how well everyone performed in this movie. This movie, honestly, is going to go down as, it's going to be one of the best movies of the year already. Like, I have to say that. And I'll move on now a little bit more to sort of the plot discussion. And I might start getting a bit spoilery here. To be honest, I'll try my best not to. But basically, this movie, oh my God, like, let's start with the first half, because the second half is going to be emotional. So I'll start with the first half. Look, the first half I think is enjoyable. It definitely takes its time to introduce us to all the characters. And I think in this movie, it makes a lot of sense, because the thing with disaster movies is if you don't build that connection with the characters, you almost start to detach. Like, you don't really understand the stakes that's involved here with these people. So I definitely understand what the director was trying to do with this movie. Director Jude Anthony Joseph. I definitely can understand what he was trying to do with this movie to make us feel for basically all these characters and what's happening in their lives, what's happening with their day-to-days, what problems are they having, what are the issues that they're going through. Some are positive, some, like Tovino Thomas, seems like he's on a more positive path where things are going up for him. But you have the other characters who are struggling with their own sort of issues that are just sort of going on, as we all sort of have our own sort of things. It just shows life in general. I think the most fleshed out storyline in general, I think, is that of Asif Ali's character. I think that whole family tension, they set that up. They probably spend the most time, I think, maybe with that storyline, or that's the best fleshed out, at least, because there's tension between the family. He wants to be a model or something like that, and he doesn't really, his family is not looked highly upon in society. They're looked down upon even. And there's some really touching scenes in the first half that demonstrate that. I don't know, I can't remember who played it, but there's a lady that lives in the house with the whole family. I think it's the older brother's wife, and she has a really powerful sort of dialogue about, about community. And basically that's kind of a, a mini segment about what this movie is all about, essentially. But yeah, they do spend a lot of time getting us acquainted with these characters and things like that. And I think it does pay off. If I have to say any criticisms in this movie, it probably is the first half does take some time to really get started. It just might be the contrast, because the second half, it really dials it up like really fast. Like as soon as we realize how bad this fight is going, then it gets really, it's just the pace mounts up so quickly. And the first half is really like, at times, almost like a slow burn. You can almost just enjoy the first half separately. It's just its own standalone piece at times, it feels like. But yeah, I have to say, like, I don't know if they needed that many characters, to be honest. Like, I don't know how much, Kunchako Bobin's character, Saji, and Ramesh Srinivasan's characters, they both have really small stories. And again, I understand what the director's trying to do here with this. Like, it's meant to show us that how many lives this has affected in how many different ways. How are people dealing with this in their different circumstances? So it's giving us a really broad picture about the circumstances the people of Kerala went through in 2018 for this movie. But essentially, like, it does feel like it's a lot packed in. And does it all pay off towards the end? That's my only question around sort of the first half and whether it lived up to sort of what it built up. But look, I'll go on to the second half of this movie. The real emotional heart and the core of this movie. Oh my God. Firstly, I have to say, if you are listening to this this review right now, firstly, if you went through any of this in any remote way, my heartfelt condolences or my heartfelt sympathies for anything that you might have gone through during this time. This is tragic. And I really hope that everything looking on now in 2023 has been restored and rebuilt, and people's lives are, moving forward despite the losses that might have happened during this time. So if you are watching this movie, I can imagine this movie, if you have been through something caused by this natural disaster in 2018 in Kerala, this would have been an extremely hard watch. The second half is so well done, but it is so emotional. Like it's one of the best disaster movies I think I have ever seen. Without a doubt, to be honest. Like, it's been a while since I've seen a disaster movie, but this movie was, the second half was so well done. As soon as we get to know that the rain is coming out and it's getting real, man, oof. The movie is pretty different in that it basically, we go on, I would call it subplots. There's no sort of linear storyline in this movie, I would say. Like, it's not like, there's like a central person they have to save, or, if they get to this area, then everything will be okay. It's really just the challenges that everyone faces. It's a whole bunch of like subplots or sub-stories, mini-stories within the second half, which all have to do with the first half. So, we see sort of different stories and sort of how different people are dealing with different things. I think Tovino Thomas's character probably is the biggest role to play in the second half, because he is kind of the savior and kind of like, the hero in this movie. They do some great job of setting up his character at the start as well with his ex-military training. I will touch on some sort of scenes now, which I really thought impacted me from Tovino Thomas's side. I think, like, man, what this guy is doing, and he probably represents people that were heroes during this time. Like, this movie is called Everyone is a Hero, and it's rightly named. His journey in this movie, I mean, spoilers, it's tragic what happens at the end of his sort of path in this movie. You can tell I'm choking up a little bit just thinking about it. But essentially, like, it's, man, but the journey to what he does, the amount of people he saves, it's like incredible what he does in this movie. Obviously having the ex-army training that he had, it's just, one scene that really stuck out to me, I think, was probably the helicopter scene. It's hard to watch that scene without getting just so emotional. Obviously teary eyes, not just for me, from everyone in the cinema. I could tell was just holding himself back from crying probably at this stage. You know, I was sitting next to two gentlemen, and I could definitely tell they're rubbing their eyes like I was, and it was pretty emotional. When he gets up there and he saves this woman basically who's pregnant, the techniques he uses to get the helicopter's attention. But the one part that really just really hit me in the heart, man, was when he sort of at the end when he saves the woman by getting on the helicopter, and just the army, the guy in the Navy or the army just gives him the salute. Oh my God, like such a powerful, uplifting scene. Like this movie is the kind of movie that it does really it really takes you on an emotional journey, because while there's a lot of sadness, there are moments of like just amazement. You're just like so taken aback by what these people have done. Like in that case right there, like what he's done, just his X training is all come in handy. The way he communicates with the sort of army people up top, the way he gets their attention, amazing. And obviously the other stuff he does in this movie is also incredible. I mean, this, the second scene I'll touch on with Tovino Thomas's character, essentially. Wow, man. Like that scene when he goes and he saves the people that are stuck in the house, that is like the worst nightmare of anyone in the entire movie. They are going through the worst time. And again, side characters, shout out to this family. Like everyone in that family unit, the mother, the father, and the son, I think he calls them roly-poly, essentially. That family acted so incredibly to instill that kind of fear that they had. The boy, he was incredible. He obviously has some kind of disability, but my God, like towards the end scenes, it was oh my God, that scene was so good. But essentially when he comes and saves them, oh man, it was such an emotional scene, that one, because the way they do it, it's all so well paced and so well timed. We wait. That keeps us. We're staying in tension throughout this movie for so long, like just waiting and hoping and praying. We feel like we're in this movie. We are immersed in this world that everyone's in, right? That they're in, just for that moment of time. So essentially, when Tovino Thomas saves Tovino Thomas as Anoop, save this family, my God, it's such a relief. And the way it's done as well, just by breaking through the roof, and then to sort of add to the stakes, we see, Anoop's basically closest friend or uncle, or the person he helps out, played by this legendary actor Indrans, who was also fantastic. But the blind guy, they did a good job in setting up sort of, you already know that something's going to happen when you set up the movie, with Indrans being in a very early scene, being a blind man in a situation like this is going to be the worst. It was really, really sad to sort of see the outcome of what happens to Tovino Thomas's character. But at the same time, I truly appreciate this movie for just being real. There were people that were lost during this time. That's a shame. Heroes that were lost. And it was done unceremoniously. It wasn't like, there wasn't a big funeral scene for him. That's the reality of the situation, I think. It's just like so much happened. And despite whatever happened, people just, they did what they had to during that time. And people were lost. Even the son was lost in that scene before. This movie does not hold back in sort of, it's not a feel-good story. It's not a fairy tale story. It's reality. People died. People lost. People sacrificed. All for just, all for other people in this movie. And that's what makes this movie so beautiful. The power of humanity, the power of courage, the strength through community. So it was just so well done. I'm so amazed by this movie. The other character I want to talk about a little bit, who I think probably had the biggest role aside from Anoop's character, probably was also Asif Ali's character and that journey he goes on. His journey is basically a complete arc. Like he goes from being like the son who's kind of looked down upon, called Popeye. There's obviously some heroic ability in him that they've sort of seen, but he does not really want to accept it. So when this happens and it all sort of comes down on him and it's daunting as to what he's going to do, when he sort of takes a turn and he becomes the hero at that time, his arrival to when he comes and helps the fisherman out to sort of lift the boat up, and how he just has energy and helps people lift at that time. It's amazing. It's beautiful. Like, it's just, my God, I can't speak highly enough of it. And his performance was so great. It was so, so great. I really enjoyed him in this movie. And again, just the whole story behind the fishermen and how they had such an important role to play in this sort of circumstance. Like, again, the first half definitely has its benefits because they show us, it's not exposition. They actually show us how important and how good they are to navigate the high seas. They've gone through way tougher situations than this. But I just really appreciated how they gave, the spotlight to these people, the unsung heroes, the fishermen who basically, the father again comes out and just says, we can sort of handle this situation. We're made for this situation. Just, it's so touching. There are so many moments in this movie that are so touching and heartfelt. That's one of them. Beautiful. I had a tear coming down my eye basically when I'm sort of seeing those kind of scenes. Beautiful. But yeah, man, like the scenes when he's on the boat and you just see his father with a look of pride on his face as he's sort of just going by. And there's still elements of humor because it's just staying true to who he is. It's fantastic. The father, the brother, they both see him in this new light and what he's sort of doing. It transformed him. This moment transformed him into the hero he was meant to be. That's what it felt like. So I really, really enjoyed these characters. I really enjoyed the stories within this movie. There's obviously, the other stories I really enjoyed. Vineet Srinivasan and Kunchaka were also acted really well. I really liked the character that was playing the guy from Tamil Nadu who was traveling across the border to perform some kind of, I didn't even understand what he was trying to do. Some kind of terrorism act or something like that to rebel against the, I guess maybe it was to do with the dam, which was touched on as well. But essentially he was kind of rebelling and he has a change of heart essentially. Also well done. A great acting by that guy as well, man. Like there's so many actors, so many good performances in this. That storyline was also pretty good. I don't know how much to talk about that because I don't want to keep this one too long, even though I have so much more to say. It was just so well done. I really encourage anyone that's not seen this movie to go out and watch it and try and watch it in the cinema, wherever you are in the world. Like, it's just a fantastic movie. It's so well done. I really appreciated this movie, and it just kept it real. So I will talk a little bit now quickly about sort of essentially my experience of seeing a movie in the cinema quickly. Malayalam cinema. Malayalam movie in the Australian cinema complex. To give you some perspective, the cinema was one of the smaller cinemas here. Like we have pretty big ones for obviously, the Hollywood movies. So I've seen a lot of sort of Marvel movies in the past and they normally have the biggest cinemas. So much more people in that one. This was a pretty small cinema. I would say maybe 200 seats maximum or maybe 150 seats maximum. And I would say the cinema was about 75% full. So a lot of young families came out to watch this movie. Yeah, it was pretty nice to watch, man. Everyone was in pretty much complete silence. And it was just cool to watch this movie in the cinema because you get the experience of just, as I said, the sound design, the atmosphere. It's awesome. But also just being, around so many people watching this movie about community. Something about that is amazing. And I'm sure if, me, I was probably one of the only people in the cinema who didn't speak Malayalam. But it was really cool to see. At the end, I had a nice little exchange with someone sitting next to me who started speaking Malayalam to me. And yeah, I had to tell him that I don't speak Malayalam. But it was nice. He definitely was curious as to what I'm doing watching this movie. But I told him, obviously I'm a huge fan of Malayalam cinema. So hopefully we can get more people like me to watch these kind of movies because they definitely deserve, if anyone deserves my kind of money, it's this kind of movie and these kind of people behind this movie rather than what's happening in some other places that was, they're also well deserving, but I want to support Malayalam cinema as much as I can. So yeah, that was interesting. Look, D scale. What more do you want me to say? This movie is. I give this movie probably like an 8 or 9 out of 10. Again, like I understand, like yes, it's very emotional. So emotionally, I just want to say it's a 10 out of 10. But I will say technically, it's amazing. There's a lot of heart in this movie. I think the first half could have been done a little bit, not maybe a little bit better, maybe not. I understood the challenge that was present in this movie, but maybe it could have been done a little bit tighter because the second half is so good. You kind of want that to start sooner rather than later. Some of the subplots, as I said, I really enjoyed a lot of them. The only one I think I didn't quite get behind, really. So you want to, if I'm to be critical of any elements, there was a girl in the movie, I think her name was Mira, and she wanted to have her certificates back, and it almost cost Asif Ali his life. You know, he sees a snake, which was there, which was, you know, a bit of a scary scene with that one. But I just thought with the context of things, it felt a little bit out of place to be so attached to, you know, your documents in a time of crisis like this. That scene felt a little bit out of place. I couldn't invest in that scene as much as I could some of the others, and that's maybe where the backstory comes in. Maybe if they had set that story up a little bit more in the past and how much it meant to her life, then maybe I could be behind it a bit more, because they did a great job of setting up other character stakes. That's the only one that I couldn't really get behind. But otherwise, all the other storylines were so well done. I've probably even missed so many of them, despite talking about this movie for so long. But yeah, look, this is a 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10 kind of movie. I really encourage you to go out and see this movie. I really hope you've enjoyed this review of mine. I'm looking forward to doing more Malayalam movies in the cinemas. I really enjoyed watching this one. So whenever I can get them, to give you some context, there's not that many shows that play here in Melbourne. So I was lucky to see this one. And this one, even, it only played one time during the day. There's only one showing throughout the day compared to every other movie, which has like multiple time slots. But yeah, that'll do it for me. Thank you for listening to this review. I really appreciate your support. I really appreciate you guys listening to what I have to say about this movie. If you are new here, do hit that subscribe button. If you've enjoyed this, I would absolutely appreciate that. But hey guys, until next time, let me know your thoughts in the comments. What you thought about this movie. I would really like to engage with you guys because I have no one else to talk to about this movie. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will speak to you guys in the next one.